Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Dr. Vijay Bhatia and today I'm going to talk about intoxication with hallucinogen drugs. What is a hallucinogen? A hallucinogen is a psychoactive substance which most likely causes hallucinations, perceptual anomalies, and other substantial subjective changes in thoughts, emotions, and consciousness. So what we are talking about is it is a psychoactive. Psycho means mind-altering agent or substance which causes hallucinations. It causes perceptual anomalies. Perceptual anomalies there can be a real perception here, but this is distorted. You see it differently. You might see the light which is flashing when it is not. You might see something that is not pleasant. You might find it very pleasant. So it is anomaly. It is different. It is like perceptual distortion rather than deception. Perceptual deception is hallucination when there is no stimulus present. There is no stimulus and then you still perceive something. That is hallucination. And there will be other subjective changes in the thought, because from the perception we give some meaning to it, we give some idea or concept to it. What is it? And that forms the thought. And if perception is either distorted or is it completely deceptive, then the idea or concept that is made will be altered, will be not true, will be false thought, and there will be changes in the emotion. So once the thought is formed, it relates with the emotions, whether it's a pleasant or it's a scary or it is something that we fear. That will affect our emotion accordingly. If it is a good one, then you love it, you like it. If it is something scary or dangerous, then you fear it and want to avoid it and want to run away from it. Hallucinogen can also alter consciousness. That means, can you respond to the touch? Can you respond to the sound? Can you respond to the feel? Can you respond to the pain? So your consciousness will be altered. The common types of hallucinogens are called psychedelics and dissociatives and deliriants. We will explain this in more details. Psychedelics. So what is a psychedelic? It is a hallucinogen. So that is a category of three hallucinogens, either psychedelic or dissociatives or deliriants. But we are going to talk here about the psychedelic. May refer correctly to the same substance as an hallucinogen, because hallucinogen is like an umbrella term and psychedelic can be part of it, so it is an hallucinogen. Psychedelics are considered by many to be the traditional classical hallucinogens. A hallucinogen in this sense broadly refers to any substance which causes changes in perception or hallucinations, while psychedelics also carry a connotation of psychedelic culture. It is mind altering. Then you perceive things in a way that changes over a period of time, and it is in that culture. Psychedelics, they are also known as classical hallucinogens. The word psychedelic is originally from ancient Greek. Psyche means mind and or soul, and Telos means manifest. This was coined to express the idea of a drug that makes manifest a hidden but real aspect of the mind. It is commonly applied to any drug with perception-altering effects, such as LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, and other ergotamine derivatives, DMT, and other tryptamines, including the alkaloids of psilocybe species like mescaline and other phenethylamines. The other hallucinogen is dissociative. What does the dissociative word mean? It means that the mind is one and it has got separate portions like consciousness or attention, memory, emotions, identity. It separates them, it dissociates them. One gets dissociated from the other one. So it dissociates them. So you might feel dissociatives produce either analgesia. So you may feel that you are not feeling the pain at all. Or you might feel that you have lost the memory. The memory part is completely different from your identity. You don't know your name, you don't know where you come from, and it is completely dissociated from the memory. Because if I ask you, who are you, where did you come from, they are related. The answers will be related to the memory, because you know what is your name, that is in your memory. You know where you come from, that is in your memory. But here, the person does not relate or can associate it with the memory. So there might be catalepsy. Catalepsy is that you go into a position like a rigid position, either arm, hand, or the whole body, and it stays there for a long time. And this can happen at anesthetic doses when the doses are slightly more than recreational drugs. They also produce a sense of detachment from the surrounding environment. Hence, the state has been designated as dissociative anesthesia, since the patient truly seems dissociated from his environment. Dissociative symptoms include the disruption of or compartmentalization of the usually integrated functions of consciousness, memory, identity, and perception, as we discussed here. So one might be consciousness, one might be your memory, one is your identity, one is your perception, and all these get dissociated in separate parts. You may be focused only one part. You may lose your memory, you may lose your identity, you may lose your motor functions. They all will be detached. So the person is moving from one town to the other without realizing where did he come from. Catalepsy. What are the symptoms of catalepsy? The body gets very rigid. Like this woman is standing like this, and she can stand like this for hours without blinking, without moving anything. She cannot have control over her muscles. And if I try to move this arm up, it will stay there as if it was like a lead pipe. I have moved it here, it remains there. Rigid limbs. Limbs staying in same position when moved, called waxy flexibility, as if it is a wax. I moved it to one place and it stays there. No response, and if I try to touch it or talk to the person, there is no response. There is loss of muscle control and slowing down of bodily functions. Even breathing can be very slowed down, and they can remain in that position for long periods of time. It was recognized as part of schizophrenia with catatonic schizophrenia, but it is a symptom, neurological symptom and neurological disorder which can happen in dissociative states. What are other dissociative? So dissociation of sensory input can cause derealization. So if the person is dissociated from the sensory portion, then they can feel as if they are, the perception is derealization, the perception of the outside world as being dreamlike, vague, and unreal. They believe where I've come from, this doesn't look real. Even if they are in the same place, in the same house, it looks very unreal to them, as if they have never visited the place. It is completely different, and they cannot associate themselves with that place, the surrounding. Other dissociative experiences include depersonalization. Here, the person is there, which includes feelings dissociated from one personality, feeling unreal, and feeling able to observe one's action but not actively take control. Common descriptions of depersonalization experiences: watching oneself from the distance as if this is a body, person standing here, as if there's another person who is watching this person, although they are the same person, as if they are watching a movie. Candid out-of-body experiences, a sense of just going through the motions, one part of the self acting, participating, while the other part is observing. So as if the person is different, the person is entirely a double of it, as if they're watching themselves. More on dissociatives. Why does it happen? What is the biology in the brain? The classical dissociatives, the drugs that achieve this through blocking the signals received by the NMDA receptor. This is N-methyl D-aspartate receptors in the body. It sounds that these receptors have been blocked. And what are the common drugs that block this? Drugs like ketamine, methoxytamine, commonly called MXC, phencyclidine, that is another drug which will cause NMDA blockage, receptor blockage. And another one is dextromethorphan and even nitrous oxide. This is used as an anesthetic. It is a gaseous substance, but all these can cause dissociation by blocking these receptors. And what are these receptors? NMDR, N-methyl D-aspartate receptors. These receptors, this is the cell membrane, and this is the receptor, NMDR receptor, within that cell membrane. Normally, it will be closed, and it will open only if certain neurotransmitters like glycine attaches there at the glycine binding site, and glutamate, which is a excitatory, stimulatory ligand, neurotransmitter. It binds to its own site, and when these bind, they will open. That means it will open the calcium channel. Calcium can flow from outside to the inside of the cell, making it more positive, making it more prone to activation, stimulation, because normally the inside of the cell is negative, and if I add positive to it, it will become less negative. That means it can cause the stimulation. And what happens within this NMDA receptor, NMDA receptor, there is a allosteric binding site. What it means is the products like ketamine, they can join here, and in the process they will keep this open for longer, or it will open this one for wider. And if these like ketamine or other these products, they will NMDA drugs, or they can actually block, maybe not allow the receptor to carry on its function that it will. So these are allosteric. They can be positive, they can be negative. What are deliriants? Remember the three things, hallucinogens, like an umbrella term. First one, psychedelics. Number two, whether NMDA receptor blockers like hallucinogens or dissociatives, sorry. And so number one is hallucinations. This is hallucination. Then number one will be like psychedelics, then dissociatives and deliriants. What does delirium mean? Delirium is acute confusional state. It can happen in infections when there is blood infection or brain infection, or there is acute toxicity of something. The person is so deliriants, as their name implies, induce a state of delirium, acute confusion, characterized by extreme confusion. They don't know where they are, what place is this, what time is it, and they will be able to have hallucinations, and they have inability to control their own actions. They don't know what they're doing. Typical or classical deliriants are those which block the muscarinic acetylcholine receptor. So we will talk this more in the next slide. These are said to be anticholinergics. Many of these compounds are produced naturally by plant genera belonging to the nightshade family. And the typical example is datura, which is obtained from the plant, and if the people take this, they will block these muscarinic acetylcholine receptors, therefore causing delirium. Additionally, over-the-counter antihistamines such as diphenhydramine, and it is sold as a brand name Benadryl, and dimenhydrinate, these have an anticholinergic effects. There are other drugs which have anticholinergic effects, but these are much more potent than the other ones. Even uncured tobacco can be a deliriant due to the intoxicating high levels of nicotine. We talked about acetylcholine receptors, and when they are blocked, there are generally two types of acetylcholine receptors. One is the muscarinic and the other one is the nicotinic. And if what happens is, this is like a presynaptic ending of axon, and this is the postsynaptic, and this area in the middle is called synapse. It's a very narrow space. What happens is acetylcholine is released from here and it will attach to its receptor. As we talked about, there are muscarinic receptors, and there are a number of varieties of these, M1, M3, M5, M2. There are a number of these receptors, and there are nicotinic receptors. That means they can attach to the nicotine that we smoke in the cigarettes. They will attach to the nicotinic receptors, and muscarine, that is another product that can attach to these receptors, and these are found all over the body, normally in every nerve that is supplying the muscle cell. If the muscle cell will only act, it will only contract if this nerve stimulus comes from there and supplies the muscle through this receptor, and at this receptor there will be release of acetylcholine, which will tell the muscle to contract, and they will be present in the vagus nerve for supplying the heart to slow down the heart. It will be in literally in every muscle is attached through these, and on top of that, even inside the brain, with the functions of the communicating one nerve cell with the other nerve cell, there are a number of neurons which communicate through this process, especially in certain areas such as in learning and memory. Nutmeg, a common food product, can be hallucinogenic and deliriant due to some of the psychoactive chemicals such as myristicin, which may be anticholinergic. So there are a number of these, they affect these NMDA receptors. And another one is this enactogen, which is MMDA. This is ecstasy. Most psychedelics are not known to have long-term physical toxicity. Now we are talking about psychedelics and mental illnesses in the long-term use. Now what happens is we have learned that these affect the receptors in the brain, but some of these psychedelics, they actually release more of these neurotransmitters. MDMA, which is known as ecstasy, the full name is methylene dioxymethamphetamine, that release neurotransmitters may stimulate increased formation of free radicals. Now when these dopamine or other neurotransmitters, when they are metabolized, broken down, they produce free radicals like oxygen. Free radical. Normally it should be O2. Two oxygen must combine quickly, or sometimes O3 superoxides, and they will have negative charge. And these molecules or these atoms, these ions, called free radicals, which are produced, they are very toxic, especially to the nerve membrane or cell membrane, and they can destroy them. Increased formation of free radicals possibly formed from neurotransmitter release from the synaptic vesicles. Free radicals are associated with cell damage in other contexts and have been suggested to be involved in many types of mental conditions, including the Parkinson's disease and including the dementia of old age, senility, and including schizophrenia and Alzheimer's disease. So these have been implicated that these free radicals are formed when a lot of these are produced or released by using the substances that we take for recreational uses. There is now psychedelics and mental illness in long-term uses. Although we are saying all this, no clear connection has been made between psychedelic drugs and organic brain damage. However, hallucinogen, persisting perception disorder, there is a particular called hallucinogen persistent perception disorder, is a diagnosed condition wherein certain visual effects of drug persist for a long time, sometimes permanently. So what we are saying is, if you have used a hallucinogen which produces visual hallucinations, these visual hallucinations may persist for a long time after you have stopped the drug. Normally when we say that if you have used this drug, you have some visual hallucinations, when that drug is utilized completely, the effect should stop and you shouldn't be having visual hallucinations. However, in certain conditions, certain people who may be vulnerable for whatever reason because of their underlying genetic makeup, they may persist for a long time and continue to experience hallucinations for much longer, and the condition is termed as hallucinogen persisting perception disorder. How hallucinogens affect the brain? LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, which is present in magic mushroom, and phencyclidine are drugs that cause hallucinations which can alter a person's perception of reality. We have already seen that, where it can cause derealization. LSD, mescaline, and psilocybin again cause their effect by initially disrupting the interaction of nerve cells and the neurotransmitter serotonin. Now these LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, and PCP, they affect the serotonin. Now serotonin is a neurotransmitter in the brain and other parts of the body, and it is distributed throughout the brain and the spinal cord, where the serotonin system is involved in controlling the behavior, perception, and certain regulatory systems. This also includes mood, hunger, body temperature, sexual behavior, muscle control, and sensory perception. So these drugs will alter all of these things. Certain hallucinogens, such as PCP, phencyclidine, act through a glutamate receptor. Remember when we talked about the receptors? Glutamate receptor on an NMDA receptor as well, and glutamate receptor, they are very much similar in the brain, which is important for perception of pain, responses to the environment, and learning and memory. So if these are affected, there will be poor learning, there will be poor storage of the memory, or it will be distorted memory in some ways. What happens if somebody takes a lot of hallucinogen? They will have intoxication. From the history, we would have known that the person has used some kind of drug or hallucinogen, and what will be the symptoms and signs to look for to diagnose if this person has suffered from an intoxication with hallucinogen. One of these symptoms must be present, or not all of these has to be present, just one is enough. Anxiety and fearfulness. Auditory, visual, or tactile illusions or hallucinations. Now, illusions we have talked about, these are perceptual distortions, that there is a stimulus there and the person perceives it differently. Hallucinations, there is nothing, no stimulus, and person just assumes that things are appearing and disappearing. And this occurs in quite a wakeful person. When they are fully alert, they can have these kind of experiences. Depersonalization, person feels different, their identity is different, their feelings are different. Derealization, they feel this environment is completely different. Where have they come? What place is this? They can't recognize it. They may develop paranoid ideas that they are being chased, they are being followed, they are being talked about. Ideas of reference, when a person is just reading, somebody is reading a newspaper, they might think somebody has mentioned their name or on the television, so they find themselves in a media or other people talking about them. There will be lability of mood will be up and down rather than being stable or relaxed. There will be hyperactivity, and they might involve in impulsive acts, do things that they will not normally do, even things like gambling and drinking and doing things or driving fast. There will be impaired attention. If you ask them to spell the word world backwards, they will have problem. And there will be clear evidence that their personal functioning is impaired. Whatever they will do otherwise without these drugs, that will be impaired. Even simple things like dressing themselves, combing their hair or something like that, they will not be able to function the way they would have functioned otherwise. And at least two of these symptoms must be present. So one from the previous one and two from here. Like tachycardia. Tachycardia means the pulse rate is very high, heart rate is beating very fast. Palpitation, the person can actually feel the heart is racing. They may suffer the chills and sweating, especially on their palms and forehead. They might suffer tremor with their hands and sometimes with the body. There might be blurring of vision, not clear what they are seeing. Pupillary dilatation will be there. The eyes in the pupil will be dilated, and they will be in coordination. If you ask them to comb their hair or tie up their shoelaces, they may not be able to do it. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, please press the like button and share with the friends. Subscribe the channel for more videos. I will see you again in other videos. Thank you for watching.